Hi everyone, welcome to the Mobius cast on by Zen Yarn Garden. We're going to give everyone a chance to get on for a minute here and then we'll dive right in.
Diver.
All right, we will be like spotlighting the videos that we want you to pay attention to. So can do that. But if you have a question along the way, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Or you can use the little raise hand function if you want to, or you can also post it in the chat. We will be keeping an eye on all of that. And we also always post things in the chat. So if you're on a device where you can keep that open, that might be something to do. Yeah, I'm just stalling here for a minute while everybody's getting on, and then we'll get started.
Well, pretty much everyone is here.
Everyone's in? All right, so we will get started because we do have a lot to cover, but we are recording all of these sessions, so you'll be able to find them later. So just sit back and enjoy this little time, and then you can rewatch it later to take notes or whatever. But I am Suzanne Nielsen. I'm a rep for Zen Yarn Garden, and I do some designs and things for them. So you'll get to see some of those because they happen to be Mobius. And then we also have with us Anik, and she is going to help me with, all of the logistics of switching back and forth, and she can answer our questions too. So
you wanted me to hand it to you, so
nice to have her here. But yeah, let's I think we'll mute everybody else, but then you'll have to unmute yourself if you do have a question. Mute myself. All right, there we go. Now, Mobius. So Mobius is just an interesting mathematical thing, actually, that we can use in our knitting. Some of you might have accidentally done a Mobius when you accidentally twist your cast on when you're doing knitting in the round, but I'm going to show you a cast on where we're doing it on purpose and it builds evenly and nicely versus accidentally. So I've got two samples here. This one is a sample in the Zen Yarn Garden bulky, super fine bulky yarn. And this one is 2 skeins of the bulky. This one is also a nice Mobius that is 2 skeins of the DK, and we're actually in the middle of doing a knit along with this one, which is really fun. This one is called Strolling on Cloud 9. The cool thing about Mobius is that we're going to cast on in the middle, and then we'll be building up stitches and go out. And I'll explain a little bit more of that later, but I do want to show you one cool trick just to kind of get your heads wrapped around what a Mobius kind of does. But if we're going to switch over to my hands here, and I have this strip of paper, and the strip of paper, it's just a strip here. You can see it. It says, "I love cashmere," and then we flip it over and it says "Yarn from Zen Yarn Garden." And I am going to just one little twist. So if I were to just make this in a loop, that would be kind of your normal cowl. But what happens in a Mobius is that you do this half twist. So you twist it in half, and you might have seen other patterns where you do that twist. Sorry, I'm going to do it this way. You do that twist afterwards, so you just would knit it flat, and then you would seam it like this. But it's much more fun to do the cast on, but I'm just going to show you what happens in a Mobius. So let's find the beginning of our sentence. And I did that half twist and connected my paper. So now I start my sentence. I love cashmere, and it's continuing around. So you see how it's connected right here. So this is one surface that leads into I love cashmere yarn. You can still see it here. Looks like my computer might be freezing a little. But you can see here from Zen Yarn Garden, and then it just loops back into, this is the last word, garden, and it loops back into the start of my sentence. I love cashmere. You can see that it's actually created a continuous surface, which, you know, for the mathematicians out there is a cool thing. But for us regular people, it is just kind of a neat, that's what a Mobius is. So I'm going to get into showing you how to do that Mobius cast on. But before I do, we are offering a 20% off discount for everybody that is here. And that discount code is Mobius. So if you go to the Zen Yarn Garden site, that 20% off is good on everything, including some of the knit-alongs that we have coming up. And Nick's going to lead us in a knit-along for the Freya cardigan, which I'm really excited about. I just got my yarn. It's amazing. But yay. And so that the 20% off is good on that. It's good for the kits for the driving on cloud 9, strolling on cloud 9 pattern and yarn. And it's good on everything there. So make sure to take advantage of that. I think we're going to be posting in the chat also.
Yes, Zen is posting those links into the chat. So
Yes.
just click on it and it'll direct you right to that page if you are interested.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get it.
And if you click on the link, then it will take you there, but you aren't allowed to like copy it out of the chat. So it's just a security issue thing. So don't worry that you're doing it wrong. You can just click on it and it will open up a browser in your on your computer. And then you can copy and save it for later if you want to, but all right, so now I'm going to just jump right into doing this Mobius cast on. And you do need, first I'm going to show you here, you do need about a 40-inch cable. And for this one, I'm going to basically cast on for the Blissful Wanderings one because it's bigger yarn and bigger needles and it'll go faster. But about a 40-inch cable, what you need to do is you need to be sure that your cable loops around like this. So as you're knitting, you're going to have one loop in your cable. And if your cable is too short, your needles won't be able to get around, if that makes sense. You won't be able to knit because like if your loop is too short, then you just don't have enough space to get your needles around. So that's why you do need, and you know, you also don't want it to be too large because then it'll just be hard to shift your stitches around. So 40-inch cable is about the right one. And all right, we'll get going here. So you do just need one cable and your yarn. We're going to use just a short tail. So now we're going to switch back over to my hands, and hopefully this doesn't clink around too much. But so to do the cast on, we're going to take your needle in your right hand and then pick up the cable. So we're going to use the cable and the needle in our right hand to do this cast on. We're going to leave, it's kind of hard to show, but we're going to leave the other needle is just going to be hanging out down by itself. All right, so that's the orientation we're going to have. But first we start with a slip knot. So make a slip knot and place that on the needle. And then we're going to hold the yarn in our left hand. Even if you don't normally hold the yarn in your left hand, you still hold it in your left hand for this cast on. You don't really have to, you know, tension it or anything, but it's kind of like a long tail cast on. Think of it like that. So you're holding the yarn in your left hand, but you don't have to do any like hold it weird. You're just holding the yarn and then holding also the cable in this hand. All right, so I'm gonna try and give it looks to me like I'm freezing. Am I freezing?
Bit, yeah.
Oh, now I'm back.
Yes.
So I have the slip stitch on my whatever it's called, on my needle. And I'm going to hold the cable. I'm going to dip underneath the cable, grab the yarn, and pull that back up. So now my cable is kind of, you know, attached, I would say, or held close to my needle. And then I'll just do a yarn over. So that has given me 2 stitches on my needle. And I can also see that there's 2 on the cable below here. Now, for my patterns, at least, I only count the stitches that I'm putting on the needle. So I would just count that as 1, 2, and I don't count the slip knot as a stitch. And then I just repeat those 2 motions. So I dip under the cable, grab the yarn, and pull it back. So that counts as 1. And then I do a yarn over, and that counts as another one. So now I have minus the slip knot, don't count that, 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. All right, so again, I dip under the cable, grab the yarn, and bring it back under. And you see how that one move put 2 kind of loops on my cable needle, if you can see that. So that one, like dipping under and grabbing, that put 2 loops, and then I do a yarn over to get the other loop kind of on the top of the needle. So now I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches is what I'll call it. So now I'm going to start going a little bit quicker so that we can get around. But you just keep repeating those 2, dip under and then yarn over. So dip under, grab the yarn, and then yarn over. Dip under, grab the yarn, yarn over. Remember, this is being recorded, so you can catch up if this, or you can re-watch and see. You do want to kind of, you can pull this needle to make your, to make this loop a little bit smaller and more manageable, and you want to make sure that this needle stays kind of towards the back or away from you. You don't want to let it come like through the center. You want to make sure that it stays towards the back. And then you really just let your stitches, you know, slide onto the cable a little bit. And as you're, you know, counting, you really just start here and follow and only count the ones that are on the top on this needle and then on the cable of this needle. So I would only be counting, and then I get to my slip knot, and that's where I would like stop counting, or I could start counting at my slip knot and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And this one, this particular one, we're going to cast on like, I don't know, 50 something stitches. So I'll just continue quickly to get to the next step.
Do we have any questions before we move on?
It takes
Okay.
a little while. There's no like, you can't cheat and do less because of the nature of this Mobius.
I love making the Mobius.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so addictive, right? Once you get, once you do it, I think it's a lot. It's very addictive.
You make it look very easy.
Yes. And it looks a lot more, you know, complicated than it really is. So give it a try. Don't be intimidated. And
what I have done is knit a strip and turned it and seamed it together. But I don't think it looks quite as nice.
Exactly. I don't either. And I'll show you a little bit why. Because when you do that, you like have a cast on edge, right? And a cast off edge. And either that's what you're going to end up seaming, your cast on to your cast off, or you have, you know, a cast on that's the bottom and then cast off that's the top. But when you do a Mobius cast on, then you, it doesn't work like that, because the cast on is actually the middle of your knitting, and then you build up, and every Mobius round is kind of like on the top and the bottom. I'll show you that a little bit more.
Suzanne,
Okay,
we have a question before you go up.
yes.
Go on. Margaret, did you have a question?
Okay, so I think I have the rhythm of it, and it feels like I'm moving the wire more than I am the needle. Is that right? Is that the right
That's
motion to
fine.
have?
Yep.
Okay.
I
Okay.
would say
Because
that's
at
fine.
first, when my first few stitches, now I tried this a couple of weeks ago and I got frustrated. I threw it in a bag. I watched a video and I've done the Mobius by accident. I think we've all done that, like you said, but I feel like now that I have the motion, I think the wire, I'm moving more, but my needle's stable. But my first few stitches, the wire was kind of twisting and like kind of floating on the top. So it's, okay, so it's important to keep the wire underneath, like at the back, like you said?
Just kind of make sure that the wire stays underneath, because what could happen is you could get too many twists and then you would have like multiple twists. So make sure that like, ultimately, I'll move on and show you this. You only want your wire to cross like once. So after I finished casting, let's just
hold on. We have another question, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yes.
Victoria, go ahead.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. My question is maybe a little bit of a follow-up to what Margaret just asked, and that what's the difference? And I've never tried this, but I have done, knitting in the round when I've joined making a cowl or something, and I've inadvertently twisted it so that I'm in fact doing what to me looks like what's the difference between just casting on and purposefully turning your cast on so that it twists?
So when you do it accidentally, you actually it's not quite a true Mobius, right? Because
you've got a full turn.
You've got a full, you've got like a full twist. And
okay. I mean,
and then you still like, you have like a cast on edge. This really, I'm kind of doing a provisional cast on almost.
Okay.
So
I'm sure it'll be more obvious once I see the whole thing, but I was just trying to understand the difference. But anyway, thank you so much.
Yep. So I'll maybe some of these will become more. It is a little bit magical, and I do think you have to actually do it once to get your brain to wrap around it yourself. You can watch this a million times, but once you actually start doing it, it might click a little bit more. So
okay, thank you.
All right. So like I've got a bunch of stitches on here right now. And let's just pretend that they were still kind of scrunched up here. I've got my needle tip that I wasn't using still further away from me. And now I'm going to kind of bring that one up. And actually it happens a bit naturally if I just start scooching my stitches around. So I'm going to kind of scooch. Now I finished with a yarn over on my needle that I'm holding in my right hand. So I'm holding that needle in my right hand. I can kind of let my yarn go at this point and scooch up. I want to kind of pull so that this loop is, about as big as my needles. If I scooch my stitches, I see that my slip knot here is on the cable below my needles. So if you can kind of see that, this is my slip knot, and you can see that it's on the cable. And I bring my other left-hand needle up into knitting position. So now I'm like, in knitting position, I would say, and I scooch my stitches. It can get a little hard because these stitches are just really wraps, and so they can get kind of stretched out funny, but you just kind of work with it. Just pull a little bit, try to scooch it so that you don't kind of scooch these stitches on top of these stitches. That'll make it just harder to scooch. So scooch a little bit at a time. Yes, these are technical terms, I guess. I don't know.
Scooching is totally a technical term, Suzanne.
Yeah. So scooch a little bit till you have some stitches that are like up here to knit. And now, depending on the pattern, sometimes you will like place a marker here. This will indicate like your beginning of your Mobius round. So now we're just going to start knitting, and we'll see that it's not even really a stitch. It looks like it's just kind of this weird V over the top of the needle. So here I'm just going to knit into that V. So I knit one, knit into that. Now I see another kind of V on my top, my left hand needle, and this one, the leading leg, which is the leg that leads towards the right. So I call this my leading leg. It's actually in the back. So I see this V that's kind of straddling my left hand needle, and I'm just going to knit into that V. And I was knitting into the back leg, and now this time my leading leg is in the front. So I'm still just knitting into that V. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, I see some nods, so I'm just gonna go with it. So now I'm knitting into the back, and I get around knitting into the front, knitting into the back. And some patterns like that strolling on cloud 9 one, I actually do another yarn over to increase the amount of stitches, because the pattern, that's just what the pattern calls for. This blissful wanderings doesn't, and so I'm just doing it kind of the basics. So I'm just knitting all of these V's that come up. And you can see that it's kind of easy. It could be easy to lose a V, to have it slip off your needle. So I'm going to show you what that looks like and how it's super easy to fix. But again, you got to keep just scooching around. And let's see, I might run out of time here, but let's see, I'm going to try and keep going fast here. So scooch, scooch, scooch. And let's see, like it slipped off, yikes. But now I can kind of tell that something funky is going on because I have just like a spiral around my needle. I mean, I'm around my cable. Do you see that? So if you happen to see that, then it's really easy. You just pick this up and just put it back on your needle. Now things look back to normal. So I'm just keep going around. I knit into these V's, and eventually I'll come around and I'll see that slip knot. And that will tell me that I'm like halfway through my Mobius knitting. And I'll show you around, and then I'll show you on the actual knitting itself a little bit better. But sorry, takes a while to get around. Good thing I chose the bulky yarn. Maybe I should have done even bulkier. But
Continental knitter.
Yeah, if you're I like to pick. But if you it's the same if you're a thrower. You just hold your yarn in the other hand, and it's just I'm very awkward when I try to throw and not as fast.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time, I'm just going to keep plugging along with this. But yeah, if you have other questions, trying to think so what happens is, and I'll show you on my other samples here, because you can see how when you do a color change, it actually builds on both sides of the middle, which is kind of a neat, feature that we can use to our advantage with a Mobius. So in a lot of Mobius patterns, you'll see like it's best if you can use a design that is like has looks good on both sides, or I'll show you a little. I think most Mobius is we'll use a kind of one on both sides, or a stitch that looks good on both sides. All right, now sometimes that slip knot gets a little tight, especially with these big needles. So I did have to like push it a little bit, but we're getting there.
So we have a question from Margaret, and she asks if the tension matters during the cast on.
It does, but I'm going to show you. I use that slip knot and I don't count it as a stitch. And then I do not knit into that slip knot. I take it off. So by doing that, it means that we have a live thread that we can sure up that that the middle ground with. You can also twist your stitches on. Once we get to this next one, I'll show you. You can twist your stitches to help it look a little bit better. But I like to just knit, knit, knit. Okay, see this one, I can tell that my one stitch kind of came over the top, so I'm just gonna pull that forward until it looks a bit normal. Again,
We lost your hands, Suzanne.
Uh-oh. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. My phone cut out for a second. See if I can get that back. All right. Too craziness. Okay, I should be back. Back?
Yep.
All right, there we go. So I'm almost there. There's my tail coming back around. And there we go. So now, boom, now I see this slip knot. The next thing on this needle is a slip knot. And now I know that I'm kind of at the middle of my Mobius round, actually, because you remember when we started, my slip knot was down here. So now for this, I'm either just going to slip my slip knot and then take it out next time, or I can just really let it fall off the needle and take my slip knot out. And now I would place another, well, it depends on the pattern. In my strolling on cloud 9 pattern, I do put another stitch marker to mark the middle of my round. But in this blissful wanderings one, I can't remember. I think I do or not. I can't remember. But anyway, it doesn't matter too much. If the pattern tells you to put a stitch marker, then put a stitch marker. If it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. And then now you can see that the stitches look, they look like pearls, right? It looks like I'm coming up to purled stitches. So then depending on the pattern, just follow it, and just they're mounted all the right way, the normal way. So now I can just either keep on knitting or purling or whatever the pattern tells you to do. So I see the question. We do not count the slip knot as a stitch when you're casting on. It doesn't get counted. So it gets taken out. And then I have this, shoot, I don't have it close enough, but I have this tail. So now if this is too loose, I can use this tail to kind of pull it a little bit tighter. And that's why I don't knit into the slip knot. That's why I like to keep the slip knot free and take it out. So I have this tail that I can kind of sure things up with. Okay, but now I'm gonna switch. I still stay at my hands, but I'm gonna show you what the Mobius looks like. So in the strolling on cloud 9 pattern, it's 2 different colors. So one of the colors is this light splatter color, and the other color is, you can see up here better, this just variegated color. So they're actually, one of the fun things that Zen does is they do these, the dyeing. One is the one-of-a-kind version, which is the variegated, like more tonal, not really tonal, but variegated. And then the other one is the same colors, but just splattered on the yarn. So you get this much lighter, but they still coordinate really well together and they contrast. Yeah, we're running out of time here too, but I'll just finish this thought. But the Mobius part that's really neat is that here you can see, this is kind of like the start of my Mobius round. And I'm knitting, we can look at the color change here. So when I switched colors to my, to the more variegated version, you can see one row here. It's a little hard to see when it's just one row, but you can see how that's a little bit darker. So I was just using the light version for the cast on, and then I got to my round where I was switching colors and I switched to the darker one. And now I'm gonna like pretend like I'm following this around with my knitting. So I just switched colors. I'm just using one color at a time, but one Mobius round, if I keep following this around, hopefully you can see it, following here. I get to a point here where I switched. This is the middle of my Mobius round, but you can see I'm just knitting along, and I would get to a marker that in this pattern, it tells you to place a marker at the middle, and then I would switch to purling. But what you can see is that if I flip this over, this is my start of Mobius round. So now, this is where I started. So basically one Mobius round builds color on both sides of the middle. So you just switch colors once and it builds a row over here and it builds a row over here. So that's how it's really neat when you're working with Mobius and changing colors. You just change color and it builds on both sides, and then you change back and it builds on both sides and goes out like that. Then the really cool thing too is let's see, I have this little, whatever this is called, safety pin. And I am gonna put the safety pin in right here, because from this pattern, I can tell that this is the start of my Mobius round. And I did, for this version, I did an I-cord bind off, which looks really like just nice and seamless, and it's a good one to use for a Mobius. I don't always use it, but anyway, okay, so now I can follow this around, and this is, so I started at my safety pin, and now I'm following it around, just following the edge, follow, and boom, I got to a point where I switched to kind of the purl side, but I'm still following that cast off edge with the I-cord cast off, and eventually I will get back around, right back around to my safety pin. So that's what, it's really just fun with Mobius, because you do this like continuous cast off, and it just makes it really nice and seamless and easy. So that is like in a nutshell Mobius. Do we have any quick last minute questions? I did run out of time here, but I can take another couple questions if we have any. Remember that it's
What colorways are you using?
Sorry, say that again.
Which colorways of Zen are you using?
Oh, this one was the art walk called Tree in Autumn.
The link is actually in the chat.
Oh, good.
Tree in Autumn.
Yes. So
They're
it's
both there. So you might want to get that before we end, because once we end, you don't have access to the chat anymore.
Ah, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, and you'll be able to find it on the website. And if you're lost, you can ask. They'll know, like, this is the Tree in Autumn color. I also did a version in this this color. You'll see this available on the website also, a little bit darker version. So it's one a variegated and then one more just like solid tonal color.
And don't forget to use your discount code Mobius at checkout.
Mobius will get you 20% off of everything, including any future knit-alongs. And yeah, and then you can watch this video again later to get things. Also, I have a YouTube video on this too. So reach out, if you have questions.
Zen Yarn Garden to Everyone?
Pardon me?
Which one do we click on?
Oh, you can click on any of the links in the chat will take you to the website. And then when you check out, you just enter the code Mobius to get the 20% off.
Okay, thank
Yep,
you, that
and
was
then-
great.
Yay, thanks. And I think
have
everybody
I have a
that's
couple of questions.
and more questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead, Jamie.
So, yes, thank you. When you were, okay, after you cast on and you're knitting off of your wire,
Mhm.
because you were knitting into the back of some of the V's, would that not double your stitches? The amount of
No,
stitches?
I was only knitting into the back of the V when the back of the V was the leading leg. So instead of saying, I was just always knitting into the leading leg, if that made sense.
Okay, so so you cast on 55, you'll end up with 55 is what you're saying.
Yes, but remember you casted on basically stitches onto that cable. So those stitches slid around and they were on my needle. So I was knitting with both needles when I started, after I like finished the cast on, I was knitting with both needles.
Okay.
So I really kind of have like 55 stitches in the first half of the Mobius and 55 in the second half of the Mobius. So when
you
you
do have double.
You do have double, basically, yeah.
Oh,
So,
not because you were, oh, I get it.
Not
because you were knitting into the V, back of the V, but because it was on that second wire.
exactly.
Okay, so my other question is this, and this is the last question.
Uh-huh.
What is the difference then between this and creating a cast on where there's live stitches?
Nothing really. I mean, you can do this. You're creating live stitches, kind of, because of those wraps on that cable.
Yeah.
But because they're connected in this Mobius loop, you just always have all the stitches on your needle and you're like working in this Mobius instead of working just in a circle. I don't know if that explained it really, but you know, there are other types of provisional cast-ons that will kind of feel similar to this. Like if you've ever done, you know, Jenny's Magic Cast-On, or even sometimes I just do like a wrap-on cast-on, I call it, where I'm just wrapping the yarn around 2 needles to get those live stitches there. So in the sense, it kind of is like that. It's kind of like casting on provisionally at the same time.
Okay, because I'm in the process of knitting. I mean, I just knit like very basic, right? Because I've got because I have cerebral palsy, and I was like doing this. I was gonna do this long scarf and then connect it at the end, but because I was like within the first 4 inches, I was like, okay, do I watch your video, start all over again? Then, but yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. But
Yeah.
I don't see how this, because I did it flat. Obviously, you're doing it flat. I don't know how to combine it.
Yeah, if you're already just doing it flat, then you might as well just wait till the end and do a half twist and seam it.
Okay.
But if you know, start
So
from
the Mobius, the actual term Mobius does imply a twist then, correct?
Yes, it's just like 2 things. It's just a half twist though. It's not like a complete twist. It's just that half twist, which makes it so that there's really like this continuous surface.
Okay. So it's not to be confused with just an infinity scarf. It is a slight twist. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think an infinity scarf could be a Mobius also. I'm not really sure the technical difference.
Yeah, so people always got confused. I didn't realize Mobius was a mathematical term.
It is, yeah.
So you have videos
Go back to your
also
calculus days.
on YouTube also?
I do, yeah. I'm Suzanne, I think on, I don't know, Suzanne Nielsen, if you search for it,
Okay.
or yeah.
Okay.
I should have had an actual link to that, but.
I'm looking at at the kit, but I don't see where you can choose colors.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I missed that question about 2 colors, maybe?
No, I'm looking at the kit, but I don't, I'm on the, one of your URLs, but there's no color choices under the Cloud9 cowl.
Oh, there should be, I think. Maybe, let's see, maybe Roxanne can answer that in the chat.
You can also just include a note with your order. When you check out, you have an option
Oh,
Yeah.
to include a note, just in
Okay,
case.
it looks like
Okay.
Roxanne is texting us from the behind the scenes. So she's gonna check it out. So she'll make sure that it's there. There should be, I think there's a couple different options, at least these 2 I know we had pictured there. But we'll get that sorted out.
okay, thank you. That was great.
So remember that the Mobius code is good for 48 hours on anything on the website.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes. And reach out if you have questions. If you end up getting this pattern, my email is on the pattern. So you just reach out if you have questions.
great.
Yep. And Susan, you need to use the drop-down menu to choose your colors
Okay.
Here
once
is,
you're on the site. There's a drop-down
oh,
select
So
options.
is it considered an advanced pattern?
I would say like an advanced beginner, an adventurous, I say adventurous beginner maybe could handle it.
A very
as long
quick
as-
learner.
you could learn. It does have a little bit of a tricky stitch on the purl side for
Okay.
the strolling one. This one is total, beginner friendly, just knits and purls, and that's it.
Which one is that?
This one is called, I don't know if this one is up yet on the website. So maybe we'll, maybe I think that they have the super fine bulky yarn, but the pattern is called Blissful Wanderings, and you can find that one on Ravelry,
Okay.
and hopefully on the Zen site maybe soon. We'll see.
Let me know how much to get.
Yeah,
Right.
just 1 skein of each. So you just need 2 colors, 1 of each
Okay,
color.
blissful.
Alrighty. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Sorry,
We've gone
Thank
over
you.
our time, so.
Sorry. Yeah, reach out if you have questions. We've got another tutorial Tuesday also, right? Next week?
Yes.
Nick is doing with raising increases, yes.
Plenty of ways to increase.
Yes, so join us
great.
again for that.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.